Welcome to Stay in the Fight, a podcast by and for American veterans. I'm your host, David, and the intent for these episodes is to talk to veterans from all walks and to share their stories without a script or agenda. I'll be talking to men and women across all branches and jobs, from the Korean War era through the Global War on Terror era. We'll cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of war, service, and transition, with a focus on what it takes to stay in the fight. Hello, and welcome to the Stay in the Fight podcast, where we talk and share with stories of American veterans and service members. I'm your host, David, and we're joined by Nate, an Army veteran, musician, and adventure extraordinaire. We're going to cover some war stories, some transition tips, maybe talk about some music. Would you be able to introduce yourself a little, give us some of your background?
Absolutely. My name is Nathan. I go by Nate. Spent 21 years in the Army. Actually started out in the Marine Corps, but I lied to get in. They found out, kicked me out. So I joined the Army because the Army will take anybody, and I decided to stay there for a little while.
You did your time.
Did my time, yeah. Spent some time on a POW MIA recovery team in Hawaii. Did a lot of PSD work as well throughout my tenure, and I just retired. So,
What are you doing now?
Right now, I pondering the meaning of life, looking for things to do. I am volunteering. I'm an Arizona Ranger, so I do that on the side, and I'm also contracting with some organizations. One of which is doing recovery and international extraction and stuff in relief, but been working inside the United States with them. So,
all right, a lot to unpack there.
There's a lot to talk about. Yeah.
First thing is, what, you lied to get into the Marines?
So when I was a kid, I used to have severe migraines. And I had to go see a specialist in Indianapolis for it all the time. And I mean, I was young when it happened. When I think by 13 or 14 years old, they kind of went away. So I didn't really say anything about it. Whenever they asked me if I had a history of migraines, I said no, because I wanted to be a Marine. They found out whenever they called my mom.
They called your mom.
Yeah. So
I've actually never heard of anyone actually getting caught up like that. That's the first time.
Oh, well, that was me. Yeah, I got a fraudulent enlistment and kicked out for that, and became a MEPS hopper because this happened. I joined the Marine Corps right before 9/11 because I'm old as shit. And when 9/11 did happen, I was just getting like kicked out. So I was like, holy shit, I got to get back in. I got to go fight the war, be in the block. And I joined out of St. Louis. So I went back to St. Louis with the Marines, and they wouldn't let me in. So I went to the Army, wouldn't let me in. So I was like, all right, I'll go to Kansas City with the Marine Corps. Did that, didn't let me in. Went with the Army, didn't let me in. I was like, okay, go from Kansas City to Chicago. Nothing happened with both branches. So finally, I moved in with my father, and I was living in Indiana. I was like, all right, I'll try one more time with the Marine Corps, and they didn't let me in. So I was like, screw it. So I quit. This was like a year and a half, 2 years of me trying MEPS hopping back and forth. I was sitting there stocking shelves one day at Staples, thinking that was going to be the rest of my life. And this Army recruiter came in. He's like, hey, you ever thought about joining the Army? I was like, dude, get the fuck away from me, man. I don't want to talk to you. You're going to get my hopes up. But he's like, no, give me your paperwork. We'll see what happens. I won't contact you unless there's something going on. And I was like, okay, whatever. I gave
What year was that?
This was 2002, 2003.
Oh, wow. So pre-surge, right?
Oh, yeah, pre-surge.
They weren't like desperate for folks yet.
Nope. But I was there for the surge. That was a good time. Yeah, he called me back 2 weeks later. He's like, hey, I got your boot camp date for you. You're going to Fort Sill, Oklahoma to be a 13 Fox. And I was like, I don't know what that is, but let's go. He's like, it's kind of like infantry.
Did you have any specific jobs that you wanted?
I wanted infantry. That's all I wanted.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to go Rangers, wanted to go Special Forces, all that shit. And, I told him I wanted to be an infantryman, and I didn't really want to be a FIST or a fire sports specialist because I didn't know what it was at the time. But he said they worked with infantry guys. But he's like, you can join now. We'll renegotiate your contract in a week or two, and you'll become infantry.
Sure.
But that's what happened. He didn't lie.
And that's what, 2003-ish, 2002-ish, you said?
Yeah, late 2002, early 2003. And then,
Just in time for the Iraq invasion.
yep, showed up. I was in the 101st. That was my first duty station. I was in No Slack, second 327. Great. It was a great unit, man. I fucking love that unit. I got my shit kicked in a lot because I was a little hellion and kind of a bastard as a private and got a couple Article 15s as you do. But I had a good time. Uh, I was in Kirkuk, Iraq, and Hawija, Hadith area, just kind of like all over.
Yeah.
But it was fun. And then I actually got out after that because my wife got pregnant and we had a kid while I was on mid-tour leave. And I was like, okay, when I get back, I'm going to see what it's like to be a father and be at home. And I did that for like 6 months.
Then came back in.
Yeah, I took a job. This is real weird, man. Back then, I don't know if you heard, they had civilian recruiters. Like if you had any prior military experience, they thought, we'll put you in a recruiting station as a recruiter, and you can do that because it's easier. I guess they thought kids would be more approachable if you were in civilian clothes and look like a civilian. So I did that for a little bit, and the first person I put in the army was me. So
jeez,
that was good. I put myself in the reserves, and
6 months. Since
yeah,
got to come back in.
Well, so what happened was I did that, put myself in the reserves. I went to a couple drills, and I was like, I was going to be a drill sergeant in the reserves. And I was like, this is what people are going to see. I was not impressed with the unit. I was like, I don't want to do that. So I took a leave of absence and I started contracting with DynCorp overseas, and I had an apartment in Qatar. It was fun. I had a blast. But
yeah, that sounds super fun. I don't know why you came back in.
I found out, well, there's no honor in it. That's why. The more money that I made, the more money I spent.
And, really?
Yeah, it was bad. I mean, it was good, but it wasn't good for me financially, I guess. I was kind of like living a lavish lifestyle when I shouldn't have been. And I realized that it was about greed. Like there was tier 1 dudes and tier 2 guys that were there that had the same job scope, that were getting paid the same amount, that were just kind of like lifting weights on the base, and all of the dudes were going out and doing stuff. So, and I know that's not everybody, but the guys that were there at that time were like that. So I was like, all right, if I'm just going to do this, I'm going to put a flag back on my shoulder and have some honor with it while I still got time.
Yeah. I was thinking about getting out after my first deployment. The grass looked pretty green over in the contracting area. You always think about money and, kind of less, I don't know, you think it's going to be like less rules, right? Bigger boy rules.
I'll say it. I mean, it's organization, right? They're all organizations, just like how we are. And your leadership, you got leadership that's bad, you got leadership that's good. Maybe I was just in a time where I had bad leadership. Just like you show up to a unit, you got bad leaders, then a new leader comes in, structure, morale changes, gets better. And that's like, it's going to be like that for the rest of your life. Everywhere you go, there's going to be good and bad leaders. It's just, how do you deal with it? And it took me a long time to realize that, because when you're a Joe, you're just stupid. You think like, well, this is how the Army is. It's not how the Army is, man. It's like, that might be how that leader is or that person, but no, it's what you make it. It's how you make it. So
how long did you do in DynCorp?
I did a little over 6 months with them, and then I was in the process of doing BWS, Blackwater Worldwide Security, and that's when shit got real heavy with them too. So one of my buddies that I served with in the 101st was taking over a company in the 10th Mountain. She's like, hey, come up to the 10th Mountain.
So you're like maintaining this, the baller status over in Qatar, doing DynCorp stuff. Your wife and kids are back in the States?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was good. We had a really nice house on a lake in Illinois. It was our little pond. Looking back at it, man, I wish I could have just bought that place, but it was like a 2-story barn cabin, and I had another 2-story barn garage. And I loved it. They were living there. But my kid was still like super young. So that's another reason why I came home and enlisted more for stability. But I ended up shooting myself in the foot because I showed up to the 10th Mountain and I was in processing. At the time, All the processing was in division headquarters. Like it was just like one main building and
Sure.
drum. And some scrawny redheaded E6 came up to me, and I was corporal. I came back in as E4, and he's like, "Hey, where you come from?" I was like, "My house." He's like, "No shit." I was like, "No, like I just came back in the army." And he's like, "What'd you do?" And I was, "Well, I was Giant Corps and going with Black Bar. I was going to do some PSD stuff, or I was doing PSD, personal security." He's like, "Sweet, I'm the division commander's PSD, and we're leaving in a month." I was like, "Fuck."
And off you went.
And off I went. Yeah, I went from deployment I went from my deployment 101st to coming back. 6 months later, I was deployed again, and then came back, and then a month later, I was deployed again. So my wife was pretty pissed off at the
Yeah.
time.
Did
That
you
was
like
a
that?
shock too. Uh, 10th Mountain is a good unit. I was upset because I thought it was going to be in the mountains. I'd never been to New York before, and I
Mm.
showed up. It was nighttime. We stayed at some hotel in Watertown, and I remember coming to the window and like opening up the window that in the daylight. The fuck is this? It's all
Yeah.
flat and nasty, and and no
Brown.
mountains. How's this the 10th Mountain Division, for Christ's sake? Yeah, and there was snow everywhere too. It was like that lake effect snow where it's just beautiful, calm one day, and then you wake up and there's fucking snows up to the stop sign.
So what'd you guys do that second time? Or where'd you go?
That time I was in Baghdad, um, and I was actually all over, but I was based out of Baghdad. I was PSD for the division commander.
He's
Uh,
like flying all over the AO.
yeah, wherever 10th Mountain was, and a couple, I think First Armored Division was there out at Fophammer. But yeah, we were everywhere. Iskandaria. The only place I didn't go that time was like Mosul. That was about it. Up north. But Michael Oates was the general in charge, and then Jeffrey Buchanan was I think it was assistant division commander ops, I think.
Yeah.
Um, and that came into play later on because I ended up working for him after for a while.
Buchanan.
Yeah, Jeffrey Buchanan. He retired as a 3-star commander of Army North in
So
2000.
did you do like a standard year-long one with the division commander? Or you do like a
Yeah,
extended?
year long. All of my deployments have been a year except for one um, from Bragg when I was with the 82nd with Chief Fury 2508, and that was my favorite my favorite deployment, but it was also like the most kinetic, and we lost guys at the same time. It was a wild time down there. It was gunfights every day kind of thing, but that's why it was exciting at the same time.
No one stands out.
That one stands out. Yeah, I don't think there was a day where we didn't get into a fight, which was wild. Yeah.
Do you think that when you look back on like all your deployments, all your stories, whatever, is that like important to you? The gunfight stuff?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's a thing that was in the movie Saving Private Ryan where they're sitting in the church and they're talking about war, and I can't remember what poet or author said it, but war educates the mind. I 100% believe that. Like you're sheltered and you think you know violence, you think you know what it is to be a man, you think you know what it is to live and to have loss until you actually go through all that. And then once you do, it's like, all right, now I'm educated on this. Now I know that I'm very capable of violence if I need to be, but I don't want to be violent if I don't have to. Uh, just kind of, I know what it's like to lose.
Yeah. It smuggles in some life lessons you wouldn't get otherwise.
Absolutely. You realize what you can live with, what you can live without. I never thought that I could live out of a fucking rucksack, for a year and eat MREs and drink bottled water and yeah,
Yeah.
deal with nothing kind of thing. And then I went to do the 3rd Infantry, Old Guard.
How was that?
Not what I expected. I was so I re-enlisted while I was in Afghanistan on that deployment to go there because I was told about this opportunity called OCLL, or Office of Congressional Liaison or something like that, and then I would work in the Pentagon, and I was kind of like looking for that. How do I say this? a job outside of the infantry with a different scope where I could learn like strategic stuff, and
Yeah.
things like that, and just a different setting, scenery. So I wanted to take that job, but I got there, and then they ended up putting me on the Army drill team as a silent drill guy. I couldn't stand it. That was
How long is that? You gotta do like 2 years, 3 years?
I did it for a year and a half, but this is where Jeffrey Buchanan, the Lieutenant General, came into play. He was the commander of the military district of Washington, and he came to, like, every Wednesday during the summer. They have these things called Twilight Tattoo. It's like a big to do in Arlington, around Fort Myer, where they have the drill team, the Army band, like the reenactment stuff happens, and
Sure.
it's like it's for civilians to come and see, kind of learn the lineage of the Army. And one of the guests is always a distinguished visitor, to get honored. General Buchanan was there, and he'd always show up. It was cool because I knew him, he knew me. He would come up and shake my hand, and all the other guys were like, "Oh my God, there's this 2-star, 3-star
Yeah.
coming hanging out." So, or 2-star at the time. But the last time he came up to me one day and he's like, "Hey, I just want to say bye. Where are you going, sir?" He's like, "I'm going to Afghanistan. I'm taking over as the commander of U.S. forces." And I was like, "Take me with you." And he's like, "Are you serious?" I was like, wow. I mean, yes, no, I wasn't, but I am serious. And he's like, "Okay." 2 weeks later, I'm in Afghanistan, and his PSO, his personal security officer, and I learned a lot on that deployment too, just strategically wise. Like, as a kid, and even as like a squad leader or platoon sergeant, you see the bigger picture. Like, if you get stuck, hey, you got a blocking position, you need to go sit in, and you're gonna go sit in this for like 3 hours or 4 hours or 6 hours, whatever. As a private, you're sitting there pulling security, you're like, man, this fucking sucks. Like, this is stupid. We're getting rained on, nothing's happening. At the strategic side, you realize that, hey man, just because your platoon's right here doing this, your company's spread out, your battalion like that, there's a major operation going on over here with tier one dudes, or there's a some kind of surge push, whatever. You don't understand the cause and effect of all these different things. You're just like, man, this fucking sucks. But I learned a lot, especially sitting in like CJ3 ops meetings and stuff. We were stationed in Kabul at the headquarters for Resolute Support at the time. This is 2015. And just, I went everywhere, like from Herat down by Iran to over Paktika, Nuristan, to all the way up to basically like Chinese border. I mean, everywhere. Mazar Sharif.
Good to see it all.
Yeah, and I was planning flight operations, which was cool. I was an E6 at the time doing that, and he put a lot of trust in me, and I was working hand in hand with all different kinds of other units, and in SOC Alpha, the NATO Special Operations Command for Afghanistan, working with them, doing PSP missions with them, and it was very, very cool. It was like being in a special missions unit, kind of like I was just everywhere with. And when I say special missions, I don't mean like a CAG, but like a different kind of mission set that's higher level than just normal grunt stuff, So I had a good time.
2014, you said, or 2015?
15 to 16, yeah.
I remember my first deployment in Iraq. I didn't really know, like you said, right? You're just a dumb private in the mud, kind of thinking this sucks. Then the next, you do some reading, and you come back from deployment, start paying attention to things a little. You go back, you're in a different position. Maybe you have some, you're whatever. You're in a talk. You kind of see the bigger picture.
Yeah.
A lot of the guys on the ground kind of just they suck it up.
I mean, that's what you do, because you don't know. You have like a little bubble, your realm that you live in, and
you kind of justify your existence as like, it's about the guy on your left and your right. There's nothing wrong with that. I think it's absolutely important to do that. But sometimes you can kind of like micro justify what you're doing by not looking at the bigger picture. The bigger picture is like, hey, look, this is kind of maybe a waste of time or waste of resources, but you maybe don't know that till it's all over.
the whole Afghanistan pullout left a lot of us pretty salty. I'll say that much. You know, for a while, I always thought Iraq was my war because I started out there. You know, and it was, I remember, and it was the kinetic. Well, I had kinetic deployments there too, but after a while, Afghanistan became like my war.
You do it all again.
Absolutely, yeah, because I'm stupid. No, no, valuable life lessons learned. I met amazing people, and guys to like this day that I can call and, hey man, I need you, and they'll cross the country, fly or drive to me all night, and I'll do the exact same thing for them. You know, like I came back from that 15-16 deployment, and I got stationed in Hawaii at Pearl Harbor Hickam with that POW MIA recovery team.
And we caught a break.
Kind of. Yeah. I mean, not a lot of kinetic fighting or anything like that, but I was still deployed a month and a half, 2 months at a time throughout.
What do you do? Like, you say like recovery, but like, what does that mean? Like, what are you actually doing?
So since World War II, there are over 10,000 Americans missing in action that have not been recovered. And every single tick that we have, troops in contact, that's ever happened has been recorded somewhere. And all these recordings of these missions or operations are on file at the Department of Defense POW MIA Recovery Agency, DPAA. Right? And the headquarters is in DC. The meat and potatoes, like the expedition teams, are in Hawaii, and then there is a team in Offutt that does like identification of bones and whatnot, I guess. So we go through all these different files. We have our analysts to actually jobs. If you're military intel out there and you're an analyst, you can get a job working there. And then the rest is infantry and combat engineers, and Whiskey 1 medics and 18 deltas. But divers, sorry, and DOD. But that's it. So
It's an all-star team.
It's an all-star. It's like a little ODA, I guess. You have your EOD, and mortician. Sorry, EOD, mortician, infantry, combat engineer, medic, and then diver if divers are needed. So we can go basically anywhere, and you go through mountaineering school. But anyhow, anywhere there's a tick, it's recorded. If there's person missing in action, analysts and like an advanced team will go in, kind of like do forensic archaeology and talking to locals, anybody that's got like any kind of knowledge base of what had happened in that area, and then based off that, they'll go and we'll send teams in. We'll go in with an archaeologist or anthropologist, and we will do excavations, look for any kinds of signs of life, material from their uniforms, etc. You know, shell casings, like anything that has happened, planes crashing, and then we'll excavate and we'll look for people and we find them. So
how often do you actually find someone there? It feels like, because you're talking about like, you guys are excavating sites that probably have to do with like World War II mostly.
Yeah. We had a dive team that found George Bush's wingman at the bottom, like 150 feet down or something like that, off the coast of Peleliu or somewhere in the South Pacific. Like the lower half of his body was still in the cockpit. Like,
wow,
wild shit. So stuff like that.
How often are you guys going out and doing this?
There are missions that it's like every quarter. Let's see, we're divided up into teams, like Alpha through Delta, and each team has 4 teams inside that. All those teams will have a team out every quarter, and then it'll
quarter.
Yeah, so a month and a half to 2 months of that quarter, there's a team out, and then next rotation happens, another team goes out. If I was on a mountaineering team, so if there's mountains involved, well, the first mission I wasn't. I was or 2 missions. I guess I was team leaders for those, or team sergeants for those. But then after that, became full-fledged mountaineer. And
So where'd you go? Where'd you see?
A lot of Laos and Vietnam. I did missions in France, and I saw like Germany and Belgium, stuff like that. But most of the mission was in France, looking for guys from the B-29 that went down. I was in Guadalcanal looking for some Marines in the South Pacific off the Solomon Islands, are kind of like 3 hours away from Australia. Guadalcanal is a pretty major fight, for the Marine Corps. Yeah.
Do you guys kind of like have anything to do with the whole, I guess, like the chain of custody between digging it up, identifying it, and then you guys have anything to do with like finding out who they are, talking to the family, or
So what happens is if we find remains or possible remains like osseous material, which is bone, if we find any kind of osseous, we automatically package that up, and continue looking. Right, we'll continue the mission through, keep excavating, and then at the end of the mission, we fly back. Everything goes in coffins with flags draped, or if it's small boxes with flag draped over it. We bring that back to Hawaii, and then from there we have the upper laboratory is just huge, filled with forensic analysts and scientists and people that are way smarter about this shit than I am, right? Because they're college educated. Those people identify, and if they can't, then they'll send it to Offutt, Nebraska, the Air Force Base there. They have their team that will identify, and we usually find out about a year later if it was in fact human. I mean, most of the time you can find out. Like the archaeologists and anthropologists know, but sometimes like a cow bone or something, piece of bone you don't know.
Yeah.
It might be a small speck. You want to look for teeth with like a major thing because it's a huge identifier, right? But I don't have any like say in identification or anything like that. Unless I see like a human skull, like, oh, yeah, that's definitely a human.
Sure.
Something like that. But it's a very humbling and rewarding job. And I think, it pops up on Marketplace a lot, and I don't think a lot of people see it, and they're like, what is this?
Never even heard of it.
It's a hidden gem secret that
Yeah.
you should get into. Yeah.
With all the traveling you did too, so you're in, like you said, Laos and South Pacific.
Yeah.
Germany. You interface with the locals a lot. Like,
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
did you find them to be pretty pro-American, or how did that happen? How did that work out?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody's pretty pro-American. And I'll tell you, I had this idea that France was full of assholes. Just Paris.
Just Paris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We were in. We had a hotel in Amiens that we stayed at, and we would go from our hotel to the excavation site every day, and everybody in Amiens was super cool. They loved us, and then you usually get like one day off during the week to recover, kind of like refit and everything. And I try to take guys on field trips, like, hey, we're gonna go to the Battle of Somme, and we're gonna see World War One happen. And then I took the guys to Dunkirk one time. We actually got stuck in Dunkirk and got surrounded. It was epic because it was we're just like the British right now, stuck in Dunkirk. Yeah, we got there and they closed off the entire city for Tour de France trials, and they would not let us out. So we did what any good American would do, and we hit the pubs and drank. And
Waited it out.
Yeah, we had a good time though. And then I took guys to Normandy. We saw St. Mary Glees and all the cool spots there, and yeah, that was a fun time. Going to Belgium was awesome. We went to the Battle of Waterloo and saw where Napoleon fought, and basically got his ass beat. And yeah, it was neat. It was a good mission.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look into that. See if there's any last minute openings. I always thought that was like a civilian agency that handled all that.
No, well, so it's a joint agency of all branches, and there's a lot of civilians that get called in to help out for anthropology and archaeology, but they also contract through like different universities that you know, you've got students that are majoring in archaeology and whatnot and anthropology. This is I guess like a summer course that they can go, you know, go hop on a mission and get some credit hours and real world experience.
It sounds to me like you're gone a lot too, like from the very beginning.
Yes. So it's not a take a knee assignment.
Yeah. Well, I just mean
But
like overall, your career, 21 years, you say?
yeah,
How many of those are spent gone?
I have over 60 months gone, deployed. Yeah.
You didn't have any more kids after the first one?
Nope.
No.
Just the one. She'll be 19 this year or this next year. A couple of days.
Yeah. You ever have any, I don't know, would have you have done anything different there as a dad? I think a lot of times dudes have trouble reconciling their military service with being a dad because a lot of times they're inconsistent or incompatible. You know, you're gone so much, you're married to the job, so to speak.
If I could go back in time and change things, the first thing that I would do is take away technology at a young age and not rely on that. I was one of those people in the beginning, and I was, you know, not at a super young age, but like maybe like 9 or 10. I was like, here's a tablet, you can watch your cartoons on it and stuff like that. I shouldn't have done that. Access to the internet at a young age, even though it was restricted on certain things, it's still, I think that takes away from their ability to like get outside and develop their minds.
Yeah, digital babysitting.
Yeah,
Kind
not
of
big.
nervous.
I also found out that I've always tried to be really relaxed with my daughter and like let her do things, but um, I think I was overly relaxed on some stuff and maybe too much of an NCO on other things. It's a weird balance you got to figure out, right? Because at work, you tell private to do something, they fucking, you know, it's going to get done like right away. Because if they don't,
Yeah.
they're going to get their ass beat, right? Or not, you know what I mean? Something's going to happen. So there's going to be some repercussion if you don't do what you're supposed to do, right? Kids, on the other hand, yeah, they're
Yeah.
gonna test you. They're going to see how far they can go and bat their eyes at you. I love you, Dad. And so
I think a
there's
lot
a
of times too, you're kind of struggling figuring out the balance between, you know, you're gone a lot,
yeah,
and then you're home. So when you're home, you kind of don't want to like sour things by being the hard ass. You're always taking a softer approach.
exactly.
Maybe
Yeah,
sometimes that, you know, doesn't bear the fruit you want it to.
yeah, yeah. If it was up to me, if I could like go, I mean, I can't. I still want my military service. Like I love doing that. But if I could do like go back in time, I'd do like the old homestead thing, you know, and like, hey, we're gonna sit at home and you're gonna be homeschooled and we're gonna live off the land and I'm gonna teach you what being a good human being is all about. Like that's how I would do things all over
That's
again.
something you taught your dudes, like as an NCO, as a senior NCO, and it sounds like someone who takes it actually seriously, right? You know, just like a careerist.
Yeah.
Uh, what, I mean, what kind of conversations do you have with your junior soldiers? Because it feels to me like the ones that I've had, you know, 10 years ago or whatever, drastically different than the ones I have now. But you almost start turning into a parent for a lot of them, right?
Yeah. My last platoon in company, they all call me dad or father. Uh,
Padre.
yeah. Yeah, definitely got called Padre too. I treated them. I gave them enough leash to hang themselves with, but I wanted them to know that I'm like the big brother or the father figure. I'm gonna treat you like a human being. I'm gonna, you know, I'll be good to you. I'll love you like you're my own. Don't
Yeah.
fuck. You fuck that up, then there's gonna be hell to pay. But at the same time, you can always come to me with anything. You know, if you wanna. I was. I tried to. I don't know. Not like be their friend, but be friendly with them and
Yeah.
be that leader that all right, this dude, if we need something, we can rely on him to get it done, or he'll stand up for the men kind of thing and whatnot. Definitely, just wanted to be out front with the guys. Most
That probably means a lot, especially so if you have like all this wealth of experience, you got all the war stories, and you got all these cool jobs you've had, and kind of been everywhere, done everything, seen everything.
Mm.
All these kids coming behind. When I say kids, like I shouldn't say that, right? The young soldiers coming
I
behind.
say kids. I get it, dude. I get it.
Yeah, they come behind, and a lot of them are like thinking they got to measure up to you in certain ways, or that their service doesn't mean anything if they don't have all the cool badges and war stories. And um, I'm not immune to the idea that if you have some cool guy shirts, get some cool stories, like that's all great. Um, but it's not. I don't know if you ever feel like you did enough, right?
I think about that quite a bit too. Like, man, I could have done so much more. And that's a piece of advice that I'll give to the younger generation is if you have like any inclination to do something, like you want to go to Ranger school, if that just hits you, like I want to go to Ranger school, just go. Like you're never going to be ready. Stop putting it off. Just do it. Selection. Like I waited until I was like 38 years old to go to selection, which was the dumbest thing I ever did because I put it on this pedestal thinking that, man, Green Berets are like superhuman, like they're not normal dudes, and I can't do that kind of shit. And then I went to selection when I was 38, and I was like, this is it,
Yeah.
and it was the first 2 weeks are stupid easy. The only hard part is team week, and that's only hard because most of the people on your team have little hearts. That's when it gets hard, and then you realize that you and like maybe 6 or 7 other dudes out of a team of 18 are the only ones actually like pulling weight and continue to do that, and then guys drop off. Yeah. If you want to go to selection and knock that out, don't wait until you're older. Like it's not impossible. Go do it now. And if you don't make it, go back. Like keep trying.
Mm-hmm.
That's your dream. Same thing for, if you want to go to CAG or whatever it is now, go to selection. Like just try it. You're never going to know if you don't do it.
Green to gold, get a degree. I mean, there's so many opportunities that like I think people scare themselves out of trying. Because if they don't make it, which a lot of people don't, they kind of self-brand themselves as failures instead of being like, all right, well, I learned something, I can prepare better, go back again.
Absolutely.
Or they never go because it's like you said, they're waiting for the conditions to be perfect. If you wait for the perfect time, you'll never go because let's face it, between your own, I guess, calendar, I'd call it, right? And the Army's calendar, then you have family and kids, and like never happens. And you wake up one day, you're 20 something years, you got a laundry list of things you didn't do.
Yep.
And even if you knock a lot of those out, I think you still have a hard time as you start transitioning to be like, I did it. I did everything I needed to do and everything I wanted to do. I think a lot of times when you join the military, you're trying to like prove something to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe sometimes other people too, or I don't know, maybe other people are different balances, right?
Yeah.
Prove it. I got to prove it to my peers or prove it to the world or prove it to myself that I'm capable of meeting the challenge.
Yeah.
And, you get in, it's like you go into selection, you get in, you're kind of, oh, it wasn't that challenging. What's the next thing? Oh, that wasn't that challenging. Oh, what's the next thing?
It's not unattainable. If it was, there wouldn't be any. So go do it. Yeah.
What made you decide to eventually hang it up?
To get out of the Army?
Yeah.
Well, it's not the Army that it was whenever I joined. I'll just put it that way. Yeah.
Say more.
Say more.
Say more.
I don't like, I just don't like and it might change now, but I don't like how we're a product of society. And I mean, and we have to be a product of society because we're made up of society, right? But we tried to cater entirely too much to how society wants to be treated. Like the whole wokeism kind of thing. I can't stand that. That's not our job. Our job is to close with and destroy the enemies of the United States of America in close combat. If you get fucking upset because I'm cussing at you, or I say that you're weak and that you need to fix yourself and shit like that, how are you going to take it when your buddy gets fucking killed next to you or shot or something or you're bleeding out or, I can't stand that shit. And a lot of the military is changing to, let's talk about feelings and fuck your feelings. You have a job, do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for I'd agree. I mean, things transitioned so quickly. I don't even know when. It's hard to like look back and place exactly when started kind of shifting priorities and whatnot. But I know after Iraq ended, freed up a lot of folks to be focusing on. I don't know if you remember, there was a big push to focus on the garrison army, standards and discipline, clean uniforms, and get in the motor pool and do maintenance. And with that came a bunch of other BS because you realize, like, oh, we have so much time.
Yeah.
What are we going to fill it with? And you fill it with meaningless metrics for the most part.
Yeah.
BS. And then maybe a few years later, you're starting to introduce kind of the iPad generation.
Yeah.
And
It's funny because I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
I remember as a Joe, like I had a cell phone like when they first came out, I thought it was cool to have a cell phone.
Yeah.
Actually, I think maybe the platoon sergeant and the PL had cell phones when I was a Joe. About it, like everybody else was borrowing somebody else's phone to call people and whatnot. And we had Rolodexes, and we had if there was a computer in the company, it was probably the CO's or the COXO, and maybe the first sergeant had one.
Yeah.
We didn't have all the dash one training like that you had to go through every, your annual training and shit like that. You spent time training, like actually training, It was, I just don't understand how. Oh, also nobody was like on speed dial for anything. Like there wasn't group messages and shit like that. If something needed to get done, you sent a runner to go do it, or you wait until the fucking next day to go do it. Like there wasn't phone calls or texts like late at night and shit like that. I hate being like anchored to my phone.
Yeah.
I cannot. Yeah. I will go days without texting people, and I'm so happy. Leave me alone. If I want to text you, I'll text you. If I got something to talk about, I'll talk about it. But yeah, I can't. There's nothing that important where I have to have my phone on me all the time. And that's what the Army does to you, or the military does to you now, is because it's like we are such a action driven, like we need immediate feedback. And I can't, like, we don't need immediate feedback on a bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. I think what I'm hearing you say is that stuff became unrecognizable.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think a lot of times you're forced to get on board or see yourself through the door,
Yeah. So long, partner.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Well, I mean, for whatever reason you choose, I mean, getting out, how'd that go for you?
It was okay. So I left Bragg. I left Bragg or Liberty, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to call it Bragg. I'm going to call it Benavides or Gavin. Actually, I'm going to refuse to call it anything else.
Yeah.
I left Fort Gavin about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago. I was with 2nd Brigade, first of the 325, the Red Falcons. I don't know if you know who they are or not.
Mm-hmm.
Spent time in Bravo Company for a little bit, and then Alpha Company deployed with them as well. Great unit. Loved ACO with like all my heart. But I left there, and I was supposed to be on orders to Hohenfels to go be an OC, but things happened, and I didn't get to go do that. So I picked, all right, well, I got a year and a half, year left in the Army. I'm from Arizona, so I'm going to try and get to the Southwest somehow. So I was looking at like ROTC jobs in Texas, like A&M and places in Arizona. And then I found Fort Huachuca, which is the MI Military Intelligence Center of Excellence.
That was your last place?
That was my last place. Yeah, I taught small unit tactics, land navigation, rifle marksmanship to MI lieutenants and for their Bullock. And I actually had a good time with that. I'm one of 2 or 3 infantrymen on the entire base, so we are different, and it's a different lifestyle. It's hard for me to adjust to them, and it's hard for them to adjust to me and the other infantrymen that are there. They basically are pissed off and, they kind of just done with it. And I get it, but they're younger guys. They just kind of like burnt out fast. But for me, I got to teach. And I like teaching impressionable people, like moldable minds that are still new to the military, and I can kind of show them like, hey, this is what it's actually like. This is, you know, all your battle drills and going through 1 alpha with them, and just I have fun doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just learning the tactics and kind of tell them like, this is what you can expect in a real combat scenario, and this is what we train for. Everything's different, and take care of your soldiers, and just anything and everything with them. I love that, doing that kind of stuff. So it was the MI community is not like the infantry, so it's kind of like I was prepping myself to become a civilian on my way out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I did that, and I joined the Arizona Rangers to kind of get my foot in the door with giving back to the community as well. And then for my CSP, which is a career skills program, if you guys don't know about it, take advantage of it. It's on your way out the door, whether you are ETSing or retiring, you get up to 120 days to go do an internship with somebody. I took the guy who used to bodyguard, General Buchanan, his school lifelong friend has a charter boat in Alaska that goes out and catches halibut. So I became a deckhand for a while.
Oh, wow.
That was my internship. General Buchanan also happens to live out here. So we're both Arizona boys. We connected on that, and still keep in touch, and close. I would say we're friends now. And he's introduced me to some good people, and networking is great, and I got opportunities to do things in different places, and I've been working with some organizations. I took off my internship early. I didn't tell the Army this, but hey, fuck them, as I'll say. But Hurricane Helene hit North Carolina, and it got real bad. So after like the second day, I packed up everything in my truck that I could for survival, whatever supplies, and took off and drove to North Carolina and joined up with a couple organizations or a couple friends that were with some organizations, and basically did search and rescue and resupply.
Personally, you were just like, hey, I'm fucking going.
Yeah.
Right on, dude.
Yeah. I did that from end of September until like November 20th, 22nd.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, man, if you don't know anything about what's going on in North Carolina and on the Tennessee border, it is fucking demolished. Like,
Yeah.
Worse than any hurricane I've ever seen, worse than Iraq or Afghanistan in any war zone. Like, I've never seen anything like that before. And there's some really good organizations up there doing stuff. CharlieMike.org, SaveOurAllies.org, Freedom Savages or Savage Freedoms. There's another one. Team Rubicon, Sentinel Foundation, Hunter 7 Foundation. All these. It's all veterans that dudes like need that next objective after they get out, kind of thing, that just showed up and are giving and giving and giving, while like county, state, federal, or I don't know what the fuck they're doing, but slapping people in the face with $750 saying, hey, sorry about your life.
Yeah.
Shit like that. But yeah, it was I'm going back to help with rebuild. I took a contract with another organization to help out, and yeah, it was just, man, I can't even explain it, man. You just got to go get on the ground there sometime and check it out if you can.
I think everyone I've talked to that's been out there has basically said almost verbatim that, like, it's indescribable. Like, I can't even impress upon you the damage from the loss there.
It's wild. It's so wild. You're 4 or 5 hours away from the coast in the mountains, and this hurricane just destroyed this area. Like, landslides, people's homes. I was in a small town that the whole family lived within a block. And I went into this fire station one day and I was talking to people. And as I walked out, I went in there to say, hey, my name's Nate. I'm with this organization. We have Starlink. If you guys need it, we got food, water, all this stuff. I was trying to basically make supply routes for people. And I walk out and I see this guy and he looked kind of down, and I was like, hey man, I'm Nate. I'm here with this stuff. If you need help, let me know. I'll help you out. He's like, thank you. I just found my dad yesterday. And I was like, no, I'm sorry to hear that. He's like, yeah. And then he goes, the 12 other family members are still missing. And I was like, holy shit. This dude lost 13 family members from like dad, mom, cousin, your sister, brother, and shit. And that's a lot of loss, man. Like, I get like losing one family member or two family members, but your entire family just got wiped out. And how do you take that? This dude's still standing there. I don't know if I'd be strong enough to handle that. I'm a pretty strong dude mentally, but shit, there's a breaking point for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe there isn't. I think humans are pretty resilient deep down, and I'm sure he had hope for something there, for some recovery or some reconciliation, some finding the body might be enough to keep someone going.
Yeah,
that's tremendous.
But community came out in enforcement. Maybe that probably, I know that helped him. That had to help him seeing a community there.
Yeah, it's kind of the silver lining of the vet community, the GWOD vets, as they all start transitioning out, right, and looking for that next, I don't know,
that next mission.
Objective. Yeah, they're looking for purpose, right? Like, hey, some of them are going to be pretty salty about the way things ended in Iraq and Afghanistan, right? So they're trying to right some wrongs. There's other ones that are going to be like just looking for something to do, purpose. They got certain skill sets. I mean, there's plenty of stuff lying around in this country, and even outside of it, that you could do. And they're so good at like getting together and like just focusing, like, hey, pooling resources, and kind of consolidating lines of effort. It's weird because, while you're in, I think a lot of times there's a ton of careerism and competition, right? And then the first thing that everyone notices when they're transitioning out and retiring is like, hey man, you got to network, It's like, it's the first time everyone's hearing it. Like, you got to network. I mean, you got to like talk to other people and see what you can do for each other. Be humble enough to learn from anybody.
Absolutely.
It's not really something that's reinforced, I think, while you're on active duty. The culture isn't really about networking. A lot of times it's about, at least from my point of view, it's always been all about like self-sufficiency, doing better than the other guys, outworking them, outperforming them. Don't give them no trade secrets. Don't share information,
Yeah.
You're trying to get promoted. You're trying to be the guy, the go-to guy, right? Like, I want the cool mission. I want the promotion. I want I don't know. You're ego driven.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys that are like that for sure.
Yeah. Very, very few times it's like everyone willing to share information, share lessons learned, look out for the team, take care of the guys, take care of your peers.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny listening to my friends that are getting out too. And like, oh man, you got to network. And like, people are willing to talk and help each other out.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear it.
So if you're on your way out, start networking now. Start a LinkedIn account. Like, build yourself a good resume. Build yourself up on it. Like, you got to learn also how to. So in combat arms and enlisted, there's not a lot of shit we can do besides become a cop, firefighter, EMT, whatever, executive protection, something like that. So you gotta figure out how to word things. How does your basically my leadership in this area puts me in responsibility of this in the civilian world, and a lot of guys don't know how to talk about that stuff. They don't know. I was in charge of a platoon of 35, 40 people, or a company of 120. That's some high level leadership. Like, guys don't realize that on the outside world, but if you're in charge of 35 to 120 people as a civilian, you're like a CEO, you know, like, or
Yeah.
a district manager or something like that. Like there's, don't sell yourself short, build up your resume like you should, and then network, talk to everybody, learn from everybody. Like you said, like, if if you, if I could go back in time and just like go shadow people and see what they do. Like, hey, I'll help. I will work for you. You don't have to pay me anything. I'll just work for you and see what you're doing. Go do that shit. You know, go find out what they do and learn about it. And then there's people that are going to be like, you want to work for free? Okay, you're stupid, but let's do it. You know, go do it. Go learn.
Probably looking for some purpose too. Don't just be flapping in the breeze thinking that something's going to fall in your lap.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got to be proactive. If you think the shit's just going to be handed to you, no, it's not like that. I mean, maybe certain instances, but you definitely have to be proactive and get
Kind of
out.
fool yourself sometimes. I think dudes get institutionalized. And I think if they keep showing up at the right time, right place, right uniform, that shit will keep moving forward for them.
Oh yeah, that's
And you kind of got to
yeah.
shake them and be like, hey man, like,
One of everybody that gets out says this, but the army does not care about you. It does not care about you. The people you serve next to care about you,
mhm.
but when I went to get my DD 214 and my retirement paperwork, like do my final sign out and stuff, uh, the guy handed me a box and he's like, "Here's your retirement flag." I was like, "Sweet." Opened it. You know, it wasn't even tri-folded. It was just fucking kind of like folded and thrown in the box. Like, oh,
Mhm.
cool. And he's like,
Yeah,
"Yeah, I think there's like a retirement sticker in there too." I was like, "Okay." And I'm gonna walk you, I'll escort you out of the building. I was like, all right, you don't have to escort me out. But he's like,
we're good, man.
so he walks me out of the building. As we're walking by, there's a little bell like you see at like a restaurant, you know, if like your service was good. He's like, if you could
Mhm.
just go ahead and ring the bell. I was like,
Is
okay.
it a Kuka?
Yeah. I ring the bell, or he's like, attention, everybody, we got one more retiree or one more retiree. And he's like, go ahead and ring the bell. And I retire the bell like nobody said a fucking thing.
So fucking awkward.
Just like, just give me my shit, dude. And
Yeah.
and then after
Stuff
that,
like,
you know, it's like the army doesn't care. You know, you're gone, dude. Army keeps
yeah.
rolling. You know,
Yeah.
so
All the pomp and circumstance is gone, right? All the idea that you have some identity that's got some level of respect attached to it. You're in the hierarchy somewhere, and then they give you a flag that's folded like a well, not folded, right? It's like stuffed in a box like a piece of dirty underwear. And you go over and ring that bell.
yeah, ring the bell. Like I feel like I was fucking quitting at Buds or something. You know, like ding,
That's
I'm out.
brutal.
See you guys later. And that was the end of it. Yeah. So it's all about the people, man. The people take care of you, not the army.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'd agree. I look back and I'm like, everything that was positive has always been just like personal relationships with people. Um, all the professional stuff and like the stuff that the army tells you to care about, all the institutional stuff. Kind of at the end of the day, it's either BS or it's not. I mean, it's not memorable at all. It's like useful for a certain time. Um,
Yeah.
all the good stuff is people, man. Like bullshitting on a rooftop in Missoula. Like I'm gonna remember that the rest
Yeah.
of my life. I'm not gonna remember. I don't know, MLC, SLC, that bullshit. Uh,
Yeah. I will remember SLC, but that's for different reasons.
yeah,
Have
yeah, yeah.
a good time
The
with the
people.
friends. Yeah. The people.
Um, hey, so talk to me about music. Is that always been a part of your life, or is that something you picked up when you started getting out?
No, and I got a guitar when I was like a kid, you know, started learning how to play Smoke on the Water and it was done. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a rock star. Yeah.
God, I just started listening to that song again. Like, it's always kind of been in my iTunes library, and then the other day I was like, oh yeah, I'll just I was gonna go for like a motorcycle ride, and I was like starting it up in the garage, turn that song on. Oh,
That was it.
it's so good.
That's how I knew I was going to play guitar. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I started at a real young age. And I've always like written music, I guess. I thought it was cool to write songs and stuff when I was a kid, but I was scared shitless to play in front of people. Like I would not let anybody hear me. Um, then I got married and it's like 2000, actually it was 2011, right before my 12 deployment. I would play for the boys. We'd always have platoon gatherings at the house, like a cookout every weekend. Platoon came over. Another reason why I love Two Fury so much is that the memories there were great. Just tight, very tight knit unit.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a singer-songwriter contest that was happening at Husk Hardware House. This was back when Josh Collins used to own the place. He was a former CAG operator. And he made that place awesome. And they had like singer-songwriter contest that was, I think it was like when, I don't know, like The Voice got big and
Yeah.
Idol kind of thing. So like, oh, we're gonna try it out. So all my wife and the boys that I was with were like, you need to go, you need to go. Not a big fan of playing in front of people, guys. Like, you guys are about it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just do it. So I went, and oh, this is crazy. Hold on just a second. So I went. I'm gonna keep talking to you, and after like 4 weeks of going every Wednesday, I got this thing. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Hell
This is
yeah.
old as shit, but yeah, I
That's
won, and yeah, I kept going back.
$2,000 is what it took to get you to come back.
Yeah, well,
Like a regular.
it was like $50. You won $50 or $100, and then there was like the big thing at the end where you go up against everybody, and then I won that. And then the owner Josh, helped me put my song up on iTunes that I wrote, and became like my first record label. It's called Rock the Boat Records, and then I started going out and playing like everywhere. I was like, after that first initial like playing in front of somebody, like a large crowd, then it became like calm, like I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. Have you ever been scuba diving?
No.
No? Okay.
No, but I've been like free diving.
Okay. Well, you know how like you're above the surface and as soon as you go under, like the world's just different.
Oh, absolutely.
That's kind of how I feel now when I play guitar and like sing. Like like yeah. I played at Sturgis. I opened for Leonard Skinner one time, and I was so fucking scared. But when I walked out on stage, but as soon as I started playing, it was like calmness, like hit me, like, and I felt like I was scuba diving. Like, there was only one thing that was going on. It was me and my guitar, and singing. But
And
anyhow,
Skinner's right behind you.
what's that?
And Skinner's right behind you, so don't worry about it.
Yeah,
No pressure.
no pressure. A bunch of fucking bikers on thousands of Harleys, and don't piss them off. Make sure this is good. Anyhow, so I got the record label going, produced that song, came out with a couple other songs. I deployed though, like shortly thereafter. Yeah, it was like November 30th, 2011, and then February 14th, I was in Banjoy. I came back, wrote some more music. I don't know if you ever heard of the band Madison Rising. They were kind of popular for a little bit for their rendition of the Star Spangled Banner, like a rock version of the Star Spangled Banner. I toured with them a little, open Charlotte, like Double Door Inn, where Eric Clapton used to play at, up and down, I don't know, up and down the East Coast. And then Josh Collins got me to open for the Mavericks at some festival in Fayetteville. Can't remember the name of it. And then Nick Palmisano, who owned Ranger Up, he asked me to come to Mobile, Alabama. So I went to Mobile, Alabama. I played at the Mobile Aerofest, and then got on it took me on the bus and introduced me to Big and Rich. So I was hanging out with Big and Rich, and they were cool as shit. And we were just hanging out on the bus while he was smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol, and it was.
What haven't you gotten to do, man?
Huh?
So what haven't you gotten to do?
Oh yeah. I've done a lot of stuff, man.
Yeah. Adventure extraordinaire. It does belong on your business card.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Sturgis was a big deal too, 2013. That was, I went out there with Special Operations Speaks Foundation and opened, we did like a thing on September 11th for not 9/11, but for Benghazi, the SEALs that went down. So I got to do that with them. And Sturgis is a wild time, dude. Like 10 days of just music, alcohol. It was, Yeah.
Perfect spot for an 11 Bravo, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Music, alcohol, there's
Motorcycle. Yeah.
motorcycles and fights too. I mean, it was just a big thing. There's like 5 or 6 different stages there too. It's wild, dude. They have the main stage, which I played on, and then a whole bunch of other little ones with acts that are up and coming that people like. They're awesome. Like they should be on the main stage, but it was a wild place, wild time. Shout out to my boys, the Dead Rabbits with ACO 1325. Just throwing it out there.
Was that like a platoon tattoo? You guys all get that?
Nope, I took over the platoon like 2 weeks before deployment, and they didn't know who I was. So we got into town. My medic was in the back behind a tent giving tattoos with his tattoo gun.
Oh, hell yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, sorry." The guy's like, "We're not in trouble, are we?" I was like, "No. What are you guys doing? Giving tattoos?" I was like, "All right, well, you don't know me." And they didn't trust me. I went through like, I was their 7th platoon sergeant in 2 years, which is wild. That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I was like, "Well, look, boys, I'm here for you." So put Dead Rabbits on me. And they're like, "What?" I said, "Yeah, put it on me. I'm here." And I was their platoon sergeant for over 20 months after that. 24 months.
I love that.
I love those kids, man. That was like one of the best units I've ever served in besides BCO 2 Fury. It was just a different time, you know. Those kids we were in Iraq in 21, and it was Iraq and then Kuwait and then Iraq and then another platoon with Syria, and it was like they didn't get to serve the GWAT, so a lot of those kids feel like they didn't do their time, their service. You know, they wish they could have done more, and a lot of those kids are struggling, but they did. They did what they could, and I would have taken all those guys into a gunfight just like any other time, you know. So if you are one of those people that feel like you didn't do enough, trust me, you did enough, and I'd rather you not do that kind of stuff that we had to go through because you might not be here right now. So
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I don't know. I think we're always struggling with, did we do enough? You know, did I meet my full potential? Did I prove it to myself? Did I prove it, I don't know, to the world? Dudes are struggling with that all the time.
yeah,
It's easy to say the GWAT would have fixed it. Oh yeah, but not really, man. Like,
there's organizations out there they can contact. Like CharlieMike.org is one of them. You
yeah,
know, Hunter Seven Foundation, stuff like. There's all the different kinds.
there's a lot of good dudes doing a lot of good stuff. Doesn't have to. Military is not it. It's like, it doesn't have to be the only thing that ever provides meaning in your life. You know.
Absolutely not. Hit me up on Instagram, like Warfighter Tradecraft. That's me. If you guys need help with anything, you know, I'm here.
I think also we'll link we'll link your song too. There's a specific song keeps coming up when I talk to anybody about you, so
Oh,
we'll throw that up, and
must be Fallen Soldier.
maybe we'll talk again soon, Nate. I'd love to hear more about like your time in Iraq after OIF, right? Like,
Yeah,
and
let's do it.
and your time out in Carolina, Tennessee with some hurricane. I want to hear more about that. So if you'd be willing, we'll do that.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for being here.